Wolf Blue tone today. I'm moved by 9. This is gonna be a fun video.
Are we on a freaking like wave pool or something? Like
Wave pool?
You know where? I don't know what I'm talking about. Just don't look at me.
By the way, where is Hawaii?
How dare you?
I'm kidding.
How dare you?
You have to tell them now. So what are we talking about?
So today we're going to be talking about how to vet agents and managers for your acting career.
So what does vet mean? Well, I'll tell you. So vet literally just means basically to make sure that something is what it is or what somebody says it is. So like an agency approaches you or you approach the agent, you want to work together, you think it's a good fit, then you want to make sure that you vet the agent at that point to make sure that they actually are an agent, that's a real agency, that they're not a scam. Like that is what vetting means. It just means verification, basically.
Yeah. So. Because it is, you know, it's a big step in any actor or performance career, but it's more complicated than you might think, because believe it or not, there are actually a lot of scammers out there which you really want to avoid, but in order to avoid them, you really have to be smart about how you go about it and how you do your research, because research is so important. And yeah.
Cool.
Okay, guys. So, some of you may know this, some of you may not, but I got an agent recently.
Yay!
So, okay, I'm not going to say too much information about them just because, I mean, if you really want to know, look it up on IMDb, but like, I just don't feel like saying all that information about this company. But it is a agency that would represent me in modeling and acting, which is super cool because I obviously am doing the acting thing, but I also wanted to do the modeling thing. So yeah, we're excited. Hopefully things will go well, and
Hey. Cool.
Okay, so the number one most important thing that you have to do when you feel that you're ready for an agent or manager, because you know they're not going to just hit up on your door and be like, "Hey, I want to represent you." That unfortunately doesn't happen for most of us.
If it does, it's probably not a good thing.
Yeah, probably.
Kind of weird, but you know.
Yeah. Even though honestly, I would kind of love for an agent or manager to say, "I want to represent you," me not having to do anything, and be like, "Really, me, really?" But anyway, we digress. So number one thing you have to do after you decide you're ready is to do your research. Always do your research.
Yes.
I feel like that is the number one thing we would say in any video. You always have to do your research.
Research.
It's annoying, yes, but very helpful. So for me, what I did was, so say I want to find an agent in Atlanta, which is what I did. We'll walk you through the process of what I did. So I'm going to look at all the companies in, all the management companies and the agency companies in Atlanta, and see what they represent people for. So with that, I looked through the IMDb Pro page. That's a very useful thing to do. For me, I would kind of say if you can't find them on there, to me that's already a big like no, because pretty much any reputable company and even like performer is on IMDb Pro. So I would definitely, if they're on there, then you're good. If not, cross them off your list. Also, another good place to look from a previous agency meeting, you remember, that I had that kind of saved me, look on the website Better Business Bureau. Not every agency is going to be on there, but sometimes it could help you know whether or not you're kind of walking into a scam, because yeah, they happen. I will say one, I guess, side note, but also related, there is one agency supposedly in Atlanta. I won't say which one it is, honestly, because I don't remember the full name of it right now. But there's one agency I've been hearing a lot of on social media groups where they've been reaching out to a lot of actors, and it is a huge scam. Like apparently they ask you for a boatload of money right up front, which is not supposed to happen ever. So, you know, just beware for stuff like that. And I don't know, maybe they would be on Better Business Bureau, maybe they wouldn't be, but it's still a good place to look. Also, another good way to figure out who exactly you should be looking at right away is any agency you come across that you're like, okay, maybe I'd like to look more into them, maybe I wouldn't, look up the agency's name plus scam. I learned about this not too long ago, although I kind of did it after I signed with my agency, which probably wasn't the best thing, but I mean, nothing came up, so it was fine. But do that, and immediately, if there is any like big red flags, or if there's a lot of bad reviews about them online, like they'll pop up. So I think it's definitely another useful tool to have and just to think of. Like, make a mental note, put them plus scam, and if there's anything you really need to know about right away, I promise you it'll come up.
Yeah, we're just trying to stay away from the crazy. You don't want to waste your time, number one.
Yeah.
And you also don't want to lose money, obviously, in some scam. So you always want to vet and do those things that Eliza mentioned.
Yeah. So okay, after you've done all that, I would say your second layer of research. I go into a lot of layers of research. I'm very picky when it comes to my agencies, okay? But for me, I personally like doing smaller agencies. I had an agent in LA that was part of a bigger agency, and I kind of felt like, I was at the very bottom of the totem pole. I was very rarely even spoke to my agent, was not a position that I wanted to put myself in. So I wanted to make sure this time I had an agent at a smaller company, or at least that single person didn't represent a ton of people. So I looked for people, again, can use IMDb Pro for this. I looked for people that preferably had under 100 clients, because then, especially like if it's one person, if it's two people that are representing all these people, at least it's small enough amount of people where it's like, okay, I know everybody's name, I know, what exactly I'm having them do and all that sort of stuff. Then, like I said before, seeing what they represent you in. So for me, because I really want to do TV, commercials, film, modeling, I've done musical theater, my degree's in musical theater, so I would look for someone who represents me in at least some of those categories. A lot of the time you'll hear that when you start looking for agents or managers, you really want to focus in on one thing, especially for agents, because usually when you start in one place, you could broaden your horizon later on. While a manager is kind of more broad when they represent you, they're kind of just there to guide you to all the stuff that you do. But especially for an agent, you want to just focus on a couple things that you really want to hone in on and start your career going on, and then focus on those people who can represent you in those areas. Then I would say typecasting is a really important part of the industry. It's super, super annoying, but it's an important part of it. So I would say for someone specifically like me, obviously, well, maybe not so obvious, but I'm Hispanic. And I've also been considered ethnically ambiguous. I'm in the late teen to, I would say, mid-20s age bracket. And I don't have necessarily a very specific look, but I have long, dark brown hair. I have medium toned skin. I'm sort of short. So what I would do is I would go through each agency that I'm considering, and I would be like, okay, how many people that are in those categories or fit most of those categories are represented by this agency? For me, I would kind of break it into, okay, these people look Hispanic, or this number of people look Hispanic, this number of people are females, this number of people are about my age. So I break it down to that. If there was, say, more than 10 people that fit all those categories in those agencies, probably not going to get represented by those people because they have enough of that type already. And even when I had my agent with my current, when I had my meeting with my current agent, she was like, we already have some people like you, but you're a bit older and we don't want to have that internal competition. And that's the whole reason why they don't want to hire or represent a bunch of people that look pretty much the same. So you want to kind of avoid any of those agencies where there's a lot of you already there. So I made sure I looked for that, looked for people that didn't have a ton of, again, me. Then what you also want to do, you want to look them up and you want to see if they have a website, check out their website. For me, another big no-no is if they have a website, but then for whatever reason the link doesn't work or there's nothing on the page. No, go away, stay away from them, because to me that kind of just screams scam too, because in reality, anyone can make a website. Just because you have a website doesn't mean you're legitimate or reputable. So if there's absolutely nothing on there with no information whatsoever, to me that kind of reads even more so like, stay away. Another thing I would say, check them out on social media. Not every agency or management company has a social media page. but enough of them do where you can kind of, again, get to know how many clients they have, how active they are. A lot of the time, most agencies will post every time their clients get an audition or a job. So, you kind of want to see how often they're posting, how many people follow them. Sometimes that could be a big thing too, even though some of them do have a smaller following. Not too big of a deal, but it is something to pay attention to. And stuff like that. Look at their statistics, look at how much they're posting, look at what they're posting, and that could tell you a lot about the company and sort of what they do, how are they with their clients, I think is a really good thing to say.
So one other thing that I wanted to mention was kind of just vetting in general, not necessarily for agents. Eliza had a lot of really good points for agencies specific, but I wanted to just make a few just general points. Whether you're vetting an employer or whatever, you want to make sure that you obviously look them up online. If you can, find somebody that works there now or has worked there. Those are the best. Any way you can include people in your vetting process is the best thing to do. You always want to hear from a real person who's been there. That's the best way, to get a good source of information.
I will say there was actually one specific agency that I was looking into that people actually that were represented by that agency actually followed me on Instagram. I was like, oh, okay, this is a perfect opportunity to talk to them. Just say, introduce myself. Say, oh, I'm really interested in this place. What do you think about it? How do you like working with them, and how exactly, how well have you been doing with that company? And I think that's super helpful and super resourceful, and if you have that opportunity, definitely take it.
Yeah, it's definitely a great resource to have.
Yeah.
The other thing is when you go to meet the agent, in this case, or whoever it is, do the interview, you want to see how you feel, how's it going. If the person's wild and crazy, you probably don't want to work with them. So that vetting kind of is important too, when you're in the actual meeting itself.
Yeah, I will say there was one time I had a meeting with an agent in LA not too long before the pandemic happened. And I will say vibes are very important, because for this specific agent, it wasn't a one-on-one. It was the agent and then me and another person that was a potential client for them. And I noticed kind of while we were having the meeting, I would get a question, say my brief piece about it, and then they would ask them 3 questions. I'm like, well, why am I not getting the same questions there? Or why am I not getting as many questions? In specific cases like those, it's a little easier to tell and feel out, okay, are they really interested in me, or are they just kind of dealing with me because I'm here? Whereas a one-on-one, it may be a little bit more difficult, but I would definitely say feel out for the vibes, because that can be very, very important.
Yeah, and also ask good questions. Prepare 5 really good, think about it, sit down and be okay, I want to think of some good questions, have them written down and then ask them. And try and keep it consistent if you're interviewing for multiple agents or interviews, so that you hear the different sides. Because that will give you a lot of insight into the companies and agencies that you're interviewing at.
I will say, I actually did that this time when I had this agency meeting, and they loved that I asked questions. And normally I don't. Normally I'm okay, I'll just see how the conversation goes, and if it's everything's straightforward, then I don't have any questions. But this time I actually sat down, thought of some questions, and they loved that. Not only did they love the fact that I had questions, but they also loved the questions that I had. So I think that is a very useful tool to have, because you don't know how important it could play out in the meeting.
Yeah, it just shows you're interested. You just want to show that you're interested in them, and that you're not just there to get a job, you're there to help them achieve their goals. Remember, you always want to give.
Yeah.
You always want to go into any interview or any interaction with someone else thinking, how can I give something to you?
Yeah.
You never want to be oh, what you can do for me?
Yeah.
Because they're not going to do anything for you. You wouldn't want somebody to do that first, if you were involved, so don't do that to them. Anything else?
Well, yeah, so getting back into the whole meeting thing, I would definitely say some red flags to definitely look out for. Again, if anyone asks you for, money straight away, obviously that's a big red flag. Also, another thing, so there was, again, last year, same scenario as that other thing, where I had an agency meeting with a modeling company. At first everything seemed great. We did 3 rounds of auditioning. We had a commercial monologue audition phase, we had a photography audition phase, and then we had a runway walk or catwalk audition phase. So that one, it's kind of interesting because at first, obviously, you know, it's, at least for me, it's a little intimidating because I'm like, oh my God, like I've never truly been considered for a modeling thing before. And, you know, normally models are like, you know, gorgeous godlike creatures. And it's like, oh my God, like that's not me. What's going on? So, oh God. Anyway, like being there, you know, there's a little intimidation, there's nerves, of course, and there's all these things. But then the more I went throughout the audition process, I noticed for that specific, you know, I guess day, I wasn't, like, they gave the best scores out to whoever during the day. And then, of course, some of them, it was like, okay, obviously, like, that person's really good looking, so I can understand that. Or, yeah, that person did really good, I can understand that. But then when I went to the individual, like, one-on-one, like, chat, all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, you did really good, but apparently it wasn't good enough in any category to be mentioned, but I still did really good. So I'm like, that kind of rubbed me a weird way. And then on top of that, you know, sometimes a company name can mean a lot. Like for this specific company, again, I won't give too many specifics, but they were a company or a person that branched from a previous modeling company that has a very, very bad and very scammy reputation. So for me, the more I heard about that afterward, because of course my mom was like, oh, did you look them up? And honestly, in this case, I'm very glad that I did. Yeah. Honestly, to say that my stomach was turning afterward was not, like, to the point where I was supposed to go back the next day for them to decide. I was supposed to have another, like, meeting with them after all this process, which I've never had happen in any other agency before. And it also just kind of felt weird because it's like, I did all this, why am I going back again to do this whole, like, second round? And, yeah, it was a weird vibe. And then I was definitely glad that I didn't go back the next day. The thing inside me was like, this is not, like, nope, alarms are going off, like, we need to stay away from this place. So make sure when you have those vibes to truly listen to them. But again, research is important, making sure how you feel, keeping in check how you feel when interacting with the agent, manager, whoever, even if they're assistants. Like sometimes you can sort of tell the vibe from just talking to the assistants. A different meeting that I had one time for that person that, you know, I had a interview with me and another potential client and the agent. You know, even the assistant was kind of cold to me. Like I came in and they're like, oh, are you here for this? I was like, yeah. And then they gave me a sheet and then that was it. Like I made no chit chat or whatever. And I was the only person in the room. So it was kind of awkward. So, you know, pay attention to all those things because they can definitely tell you a lot about the company, about the people. So that's always really, really important to pay attention to.
Cool.
So yeah, with all that, just, you know, if you take anything from this video, just make sure you research. But then also, just if you do get a chance to meet with anyone, just really feel the vibe. Really make sure you're paying attention to what exactly is going on in the conversation and how you feel, and make sure you're true to how you feel as well. Like if you really don't feel good about something, don't force it. Or if you kind of just feel okay, like you want to be excited and you want to look forward to the relationship you're going to build with your agent or manager. And if you're not looking forward to it, it might be just a way of saying, you know, keep looking. So
yeah. Just trust your instincts. Your instincts are usually always right.
Yeah.
So trust your instincts and don't waste time.
Yeah.
You don't have time to waste time. So
No.
if it doesn't feel right, just move on. There will be something there for you.
Yeah.
So yeah. I think that's about it.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for watching,
Yeah.
and make sure you like and subscribe and hit the notification bell as usual.
Yes.
And we will be getting you more videos very soon.
Hopefully.
And be sure to check out our older videos if you want.
Yeah.
See you next time.
Bye.
Tell them.
No. I know, guys, it must look like I abuse him from this, but I swear I don't. Oh.
we talking about today?
So today we're going to be talking about cold emailing agents and managers.
That sounds like really fun.
Should we make this into ASMR video?
Thank you.
Be like,
All right.
today